Hey guys, today I'm back with another video and I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read in the month of June. So this is like my June monthly wrap up and I'm so excited to share with you guys all the books I read. I managed to somehow read 20 books this month, which for me that's a lot of books. I know some people could read way more than that, but that's how many I managed to read in the month of June. So let's go ahead and get started and talk about the books I read. The first book I read is Gaslight by Rachel Rose. This was not my favorite book for sure. It's about a girl who moves across the country to escape her abusive father, and when she gets there she meets this bad boy who teaches her how to box, and it just felt very much like they were trying to copy a lot of the other books that are on Wattpad. Kind of seemed like it was trying to be like a teenage version of Underground, if you know what that is, if you're on Wattpad. And I'm pretty sure I rated this book like 1 star because I just really was not into it. I didn't like the character development. I didn't like the side characters. It just was not a very good book. So I will say that. So next I read the entire Rhapsodic series, which is comprised of 4 books. And this is about a girl. Her name is Calypso, aka Callie, and she's a siren. And she's made a bunch of deals with the Bargainer, aka Desmond Flynn. And after many years apart, he comes back to collect his favors, and he's doing this because out of nowhere, I will also mention he's like the Fae King of the Night Kingdom or whatever, and all his like soldiers are going missing, so he's trying to figure that out, so he enlists Callie to help him. And I enjoyed this book. I think I rated the whole series overall was about like a 3 star, 3.5 stars. Nothing like spectacular, but it was a pretty good series. And I really enjoyed it. So first you have Rhapsodic, then the second one is A Strange Hand, then you have The Emperor of Evening Stars, like a prequel to the series, and then you have the finale, which was Dark Harmony. The ending was okay. Not the biggest fan of the ending, but overall I really enjoyed the series as a whole. So then I read My Fault by Mercedes Ron, and this is about a girl named Noah Morgan. She's 17 years old and her mom marries a billionaire who has a son who's 22. His name is Nicholas. And at first, her and the stepbrother hate each other, but then she gets involved in his world and they fall for each other. And it's a forbidden romance, and mostly because they're step siblings and he is older than her. And I found this book. This is a Wattpad book, and I found it because it got made into a movie by Amazon. And let me just tell you, the movie, so good. And the book is amazing. I love this. And I am super excited because they're translating the rest of the series. And I'm so excited to get to figure out what happens with their story. I like the forbidden romance trope. I don't know why, but it's something I just get wrapped into. So definitely love this book. I rated it 5 stars. This was like the first 5-star book I read in the month of June. So next I read the Belle Morte series by Bella Higgins, and this is another series that comes from Wattpad, and it's about a girl named Brittany Mayfield who has a sister who's like obsessed with vampires. And here's the thing about the vampires in this series. Vampires are known to the public, and they're pretty much like celebrities that everyone follows. There's like reality TV shows about them. And they have houses, and you can become a feeder if you're a human for these houses. And her sister went and became a feeder for the house. Then her sister goes missing, and her sister Rennie doesn't hear from her. So her sister Rennie decides to go infiltrate the house, but she gets wrapped up in this whole like drama that's going on in the house. And she also ends up falling for a vampire named Edmund, even though she is very against the vampires. Overall, this was average. I think I rated like 3 stars for both of the books. There's nothing special to it. And same with the sequel. The ending was just kind of I just thought everything about this book was very predictable, but it was just a good little light read. I will say that. Next I read Dare You to Hate Me by B. Celeste, and this is the first book in the Lyndon Yu series. And this is about a girl named Ivy who runs away from home when she's 16 years old, and she leaves her friend Aiden behind. But then 4 years later, they end up at the same college. She's struggling, and he's like the big football star. and he's trying to get back into her world. And I just thought this was like a really cute romance. I enjoyed it. I think I rated it like 3.5 stars. Nothing too special about it, just a very good read if you want a nice contemporary romance. There wasn't a lot of spice either, so if you're into that, definitely read this book. I enjoyed it, so there's that. Next, I read Beg You to Trust Me by B. Celeste, and this is the second book in the Linden U series, and it's about a girl named Skylar who moves across the country because she's trying to reinvent herself because she's kind of not a party person. She was very kind of like a boring person back in California, but she goes out and parties, but then at a party she gets sexually assaulted, but she doesn't know who the person is who did it. And then Daniel Bridges, the football person, walks into her life and just kind of mixes things up. At first she doesn't know whether or not she's someone she can trust because he lives in the same house where the incident happened, but somehow they end up falling for each other, and I just think this is a really cute romance. I absolutely loved the character of Daniel, the fact that he's willing to just kind of do everything for her, and he stands up for her. I just love this book. I think I rated this 4 stars. So next I read The Confidence of Wildflowers and The Resurrection of Wildflowers, and this is a book duet by Michaelia Smeltzer, and I first read this on Kindle Unlimited, but I wanted to get it in the physical copy, and once I got the physical copies, I reread the series. Overall, I think I rated this like 3 stars. It's about a girl named Salem who lives in this little town, and this man named Thayer moves in with his son, and they end up falling for each other. There is an age gap relationship, so at times it was a little weird for me because the age gap is 10 plus years. So I thought it was just really weird. She is like 18, 19, I think, at the beginning of the series. But overall, it is a sweet romance. There's not a lot of spice to it either. It's very like subtle, which if you're into that, this is a good choice. So those are the next books that I read. Next, I started the Avalon Bay series. I read the 2 books that are out for it. First one I read is Good Girl Complex, and this is about Mackenzie and Cooper. And Mackenzie is this rich girl. She moves in to go to the local college where a lot of other like rich people go, because there's this thing, there's the people who come in for the summer and then the locals. And she meets Cooper Hartley, who kind of changes her whole world, kind of flips it upside down, shows her there's more basically to life. And he also knows that her boyfriend is cheating on her, so she's trying to get her to fall for him the whole time. I thought this was really cute. I love Elle Kennedy. Some very spicy moments in this book, I shall say. I absolutely adore Elle Kennedy's writing, so I loved this. And then I read Bad Girl Reputation, and this is about Genevieve and Evan. Evan is Cooper's brother, so obviously, as with all of Elle Kennedy's other books, they're all interconnected somehow. And this is about Genevieve West, who out of nowhere just left town and didn't really say anything to anybody, but she comes back after her mother dies and starts to rekindle things with Cooper, even though they were before she left, they were on again, off again relationship, but they're trying to make it work because they're just so into each other. And I love this book. I rated both of these 4 stars. They're really good books. My next book I read is The Nanny by Elena Ferguson, and let me just tell you, this book is pure spice. It's like 80% spice, 20% plot. So it's about a girl who loses her job, and she like gets a job as a nanny for this chef. Her name is Cassie Evans, and she used to be an OnlyFans person and did like cam girl stuff, and turns out the boss of like when she's nannying used to like subscribe to her OnlyFans. It was like low-key, they both were like obsessed with each other, had this like weird online relationship, and they find that out about each other. It's just, oh Lord, she was spicy. Like literally every other page felt like there was some sort of like spiciness going on. So I mean, the plot wasn't that great. I'll be honest, I didn't really see a plot, but I think I rated this 2 stars, but it has a cute cover. That's all I have to say for that book. The next book I read was Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. And this is about Annie, and her brother was in the, I think, When in Rome, and it's just kind of like intermingling of characters in this. And it has Annie. She's struggling. She has never really dated. She struggles with dating. She just is a very awkward person when it comes to this. So she gets Will Griffin, the bodyguard of her brother's fiance, to tutor her in dating. They're very opposites. She wants to get married and have that like white picket fence kind of life, but he like doesn't believe in love at all because of his past. So he decides to help tutor her, but somehow, you know, feelings get involved and they can't help but fall for each other. Like, I'm gonna kill that cat, but they can't help but fall for each other. It was just a really sweet romance. Not a lot of spice. They do mention it, but I really like this. I rated this 4 stars. I just thought it was a really sweet romance. So the next book I read is Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. And if you don't know who Ali Hazelwood is, she wrote The Love Hypothesis and Love on the Brain. And this, I absolutely loved her new book, Love Theoretically. This is about Elsie, who is a theoretical physicist, and she's up for a job because she is working now, but it's not the greatest job, and she's barely making ends meet. And then comes in Jack Smith. And here's the thing about Jack Smith. So since she's not making much money, she's been doing fake dating. And Jack Smith is on the hiring committee for the job she is up for, but he's also the brother of her favorite client. So there's this whole animosity between them. But I absolutely love the characters in this book. This was 5-star read for sure. So the next book I have is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yaros, and I finally read it because I just had to, because everyone and their mother was like obsessed with this book. So this is about Violet Sorengale, and she has basically lived her whole life planning to be a scribe, but her mother, who's like a general for the dragon riders, forces her to become a dragon rider. And the thing about Violet is she's very fragile. There's something wrong with her bones that just make them very brittle. And she's also smaller than the typical dragon rider. But her mother forces her to cross the parapet and become a dragon rider. And at first she's really struggling, but then she manages to somehow defy the odds and become one of the greatest. And while she is there training to become a dragon rider, she has to basically avoid her enemy Xaden or Jaden, I'm not really sure how to pronounce it, but she's been told basically to avoid this person, but they can't help but like want to be with each other, and they're attracted to each other. And I loved this book. I love the fantasy aspects. I love the romance. This was just, I can definitely tell why everyone is obsessed with this series, and I'm so excited for the sequel. I rated this 5 stars. This was just such an amazing book. I honestly thought it was better than ACOTAR, and that's hard to beat ACOTAR. So this was just an incredible book. My next book is Icebreaker by Hannah Grace, and this is another book that went viral last year. And fun fact, I actually read this when it was on Wattpad, and I had the physical copy, so I read it again recently. And this is about Anastasia, who is a figure skater, and Nathan, who's a hockey player. And they're basically just enemies from the start because of the 2 teams. And something happens to one of the arenas, so they are forced to share an arena, and it just causes all the tension between the teams. But tension's a little different for them because not only do they have to share the like rinks with each other, something ends up happening to her skating partner, and Nate has to step in to help her. And they just end up falling for each other, and it's just a super cute romance. I love this book. I rate it 5 stars. It will always be 5 stars, and I just love the cover of this book. So the last book I read in June was Twisted Hate by Anna Wong, and this is the 3rd book in the Twisted series, and it is about Josh Chen, who's Ava's sister from the first book, and Jules Ambrose, who is Ava's friend, and they hate each other. They are enemies. They have always like hated each other. They've never gotten along, but somehow when they start working together, they end up trying to do a friends with benefits kind of situation. But we all know friends with benefits ends up being a relationship somehow, and they can't help but fall for each other. But there's also all this other stuff going on. She has her secrets, and this is a good book. I love the Twisted series. Definitely not my favorite of the Twisted series, but I definitely really enjoyed this. I rated it 4 stars. So those are all the books that I read in June. I had a really good reading month. Not only did I read a lot of books, but I read a lot of good books. And I'm so excited to see what I read in July. So see you guys next time.